Hi YouTube,
Hello, welcome back to our channel.
we are the Modern Canadian family. I'm Tony.
I'm Alan, and this guy here is Mojo.
Today we are in front of the very beautiful Canadian Parliament Hill, as you can see the background. And we want to share with you guys the 10 things we wish we'd know before moving to Canada.
Yes, we've been here for almost 8 years now, but there were certain things that we would love to have known before we moved here, at least for me. So we'd like to share some lessons learned for you.
Alright, let's get started. The first is that, Canada is really big and beautiful. We have, we have an idea that Canada is big before we moved here. Canada is, right, if you know a little bit geography, Canada is the second largest country in the world. But you really don't know that until you're actually in Canada. In the past few years, we have traveled and lived in many different parts of Canada. Both of us arrived in Alberta first. We started in Lethbridge. By the way, that's where we met each other. And then we lived in Calgary. We visited Vancouver multiple times, lived there for a summer. And then we moved.
We really went from coast to coast.
Exactly. And then we moved to the east side of Canada. We've been in Ontario, been to Nova Scotia. And the landscape is really amazing in Canada, where, on the west side you have beautiful Rocky Mountains, the Pacific Ocean, then to the east you have tons of lakes.
And you have it's just amazing. Sometimes even in the same province, you have forests, you have huge lakes. It's just such a huge diversity, right?
Especially Ontario, where we are now in, has a lot of lakes, a lot of beautiful places to go. And then I also did my, part of my university in Nova Scotia. That's also a beautiful place. It's right on the Atlantic Ocean, really beautiful landscape.
Amazing seafood. That's what they're famous for.
That's true too. And beside of just landscape, Canada has really modern and world-class cities as well. But in our experience, we have lived in majority of the big Canadian cities, including Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, and now we are in Ottawa.
And people sometimes have no idea how they're big cities, and they're so diverse and interesting, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So really Canada is a big place, really beautiful, a lot of places to explore.
Yes. Now, number 2, the thing that surprised me the most, that I took for granted for so long, was the education system here in Canada. I did my undergraduate studies in the United States, and sometimes when we think about studying abroad, we only think about US universities.
Not me though.
Tony
I chose to come to Canada right away without even thinking about US.
But many of us do think about US. That's the first country that comes to mind when you're thinking about higher education. But I was so amazed with how amazing the quality of education here in Canada is. To me, it's the same level as the universities in the US. But what I also like is that they're equally as diverse. So you're going to have professors and students from all over the globe. And it really expands how you learn, how you study. You get to meet people from every country you can imagine.
And the students too, right? In my undergrad and master program, for example, you have your classmates from all over the world, from many different countries and cultures. That's also part of higher education. You collaborate with people from different cultures, different backgrounds, and learn from each other.
Yeah. Pause. Mojo's eating grass. Let's just move here a little bit. Mojo, stop eating grass. Okay, continuing. One of the things that also surprised me is that sometimes US, they have these ranks in terms of universities, and they tend to be very unequal. But here in Canada, universities are very comparable.
Yeah.
So the ranks here are really more flat, I think, than US.
Yeah. Maybe a lot of people would ask, I want to go to Canada, for education. Which are the best universities? What are the ranking? Well, I would encourage that most of them are pretty good. There are different rankings you can reference to, but I would say the ranking really doesn't really represent Canada's education system, because I would say universities are really, depends on what you want. There are large research institutions, there are small universities, which in our experience we have been to both. And I would say some of the really small universities, maybe you would never see them, in the ranking. They provide really high quality education and opportunities, for internship, for, for your career. And
Yeah.
some of those big universities you might have heard about, for example, University of Toronto. You see them as #1 university in Canada. Maybe they are really good at research, but not
But the experience in the classroom might not be the best, right? You might be in a classroom with 500 students and multiple TAs and one faculty member that you barely get to see, right?
Yeah, let us know what you think, and comment below, and we can definitely talk a little bit more on education and our experiences. And by the way, the whole video we're talking about, our personal experiences might not represent, what everyone wants. Just disclaimer.
This is our experience, so we're just speaking from our own. Okay, time to number 3.
All right, so I think I can talk a little bit more on number 3, which is healthcare. Myself have been working in healthcare related field for many years now. For our subscribers who don't know about us, I work in healthcare technology in Canada, and I would say healthcare is always an interesting topic in Canada and also in the world about Canada. Right? When people talk about healthcare in Canada, I would say that maybe the first thing they would think is that
universal healthcare.
Universal healthcare is a land of free healthcare. This is what we knew before we came to Canada, but we didn't know
the nuances.
the nuances
there
about
are nuances about it.
Yep. So first, I want to talk about coverage. So when we talk about free healthcare, I want to make it clear it's not everything is free. We noticed that there are a lot of things actually not covered by our provincial healthcare plan. For example, your prescription drug, your dental care, your eye care,
which makes no sense to me personally.
Yeah, which is interesting because you can see a doctor for free and you get a prescription, but then the medication you have to pay for it. Or even in terms of dental care, how come teeth is not part of your body?
Exactly. Coming from Brazil, I was so surprised because dental care and even medication sometimes can be much more affordable than here.
Yeah, but on the other side, from my perspective, I came from China, where you have to pay, for everything in healthcare and the different time, tax. I would say this, also might apply to many other countries in the world. I think Canadian system still has a lot of benefits. First of all, you really don't need to worry about getting sick because you will be taken care of.
You will receive care. Yeah.
And based on, I would say, many rankings, Canadian healthcare system ranks really, one of the highest in the world. You get really good quality of care, but
there's always a but.
There is always a but. I think the other side of the challenge is that the healthcare system is that the accessibility is not really the best. Sometimes you have to really wait a long time to get that quality care.
Yeah, sometimes, for example, I had to see a specialist and it took me 9 months, of waiting to get an appointment. So it can take some time to see a specialist, for example.
Yeah, so it's really up to your own opinion, but for us, we just want to share with you our experience. We have seen really good doctors here. We have really liked that the healthcare system takes care of you, and it's mostly free of charge, but sometimes it has some frustrations as well.
I guess there's no perfect system, to be fair, right? But I do appreciate too, and I really want to highlight this, I appreciate the fact that access is important, right? That everyone can at least access here. In some countries in the world, maybe his country, but people cannot access that. I come from Brazil where we do have universal healthcare, so for me, I do appreciate that.
Yeah, so I think a good example is I have, maybe family friends who are diagnosed with cancer. They have to make a choice. Do they want to, treat it, but with a cost of maybe your whole life saving, or do you want to just give up? Which is a very sad topic to talk about, but in Canada this is not a problem. We know some of our friends are cancer survivors and they had received amazing care. They are still living a happy life, right? So
no one should need to make that choice.
Exactly.
I think that's important. Yeah.
All right, now let's move on to some more
Happy
topic, which comes to number 4.
One of the things that I love about Canada is how multicultural it is.
Look at us.
We're the perfect
We're
example.
a small sample
Yes.
of that. And one of the purpose of our channel is to promote, diversity, promote multiculturalism, and really to share people, life in Canada, how multicultural it can be.
And that's what I like about it, right? Because here in Ottawa, for example, you might be walking around the street and you're gonna hear all kinds of languages just in a short walk, right? You're gonna hear Portuguese, Spanish, all kinds of language. And I really appreciate being in a place where people can be themselves and, we appreciate other people's cultures. And that also is shown in the restaurants that we have. Like, it's so amazing the range of restaurants that we have here in Canada. Especially in cities like Ottawa, Toronto, you're gonna find restaurants from every part of the world.
Yeah, sometimes just one street you can find a restaurant from over 20 different countries, from all kinds of cuisines. You can have, for example, noodle for breakfast, then sushi for lunch, and you can have an Italian restaurant for dinner. Just so many different choices. And one of the best thing I would say is really a lot of them are really authentic. So very different. So as a Chinese perspective, comparing Canadian Chinese food with Chinese from other countries. I've had Chinese food in Europe, in the United States. A lot of those Chinese food are really, I would say, modified to towards local flavor. But in Canada, they are pretty authentic. That's really I think something different, and I would say that applies to many other cuisines.
Absolutely.
Well.
It's easy to find good Chinese food, Brazilian food, for example. The other bonus of Ottawa is the number of embassies we have here. So it being the capital of Canada, we have lots of embassies around, and every embassy, they have lots of amazing events, like from movie nights, documentaries, and cultural exhibitions. So here you get to really have a taste of different countries because you get to go to all these events. Sometimes once a year you also have open doors event. So you can even visit some of these embassies and you can get to know the ambassador in your neighborhood, which is really neat.
All right, now let's move to our topic number 5, which is lack of convenience. That's something I wish I'd know before coming to Canada for sure. I would say for a lot of people, this might just come as a culture shock, especially for people coming from countries, I would say, like, maybe China, maybe, India, or maybe just some countries, you are used to have help for everything, or you are used to live in a very densified society, right? Especially, I would say, East Asian countries. Everything just so convenient. You can go out, right, of your apartment, and everything's within walking distance. You have amazing public transit system, but Canada is not really like that. Maybe if you are in downtown Toronto or downtown Vancouver, you get the same level of convenience as maybe some other cities. But I would say most of Canadian cities or most of Canadian communities where people live in my opinion, are not really designed that way. I think that's also kind of a result of urban sprawl movement in North America, right? Through history, where where you live and where you work and where you shop are normally kind of separated, right? You live in bedroom communities. There's really nothing but just houses. And then
you have to drive everywhere.
Exactly.
Right? Everything
you need to do, you have to drive. You have to drive to grocery shopping. You have to drive to to work, drive to school. Just drive to everything, and also because Canada is so big, it's so vast, and the density is so low. So it feels like everything is kind of far from each other. Yeah. But there's a rising trend recently where cities are trying to be more accessible and more walkable. For example, right, some cities we have lived in, like Toronto or Ottawa, they are trying to improve, kind of multi-purpose neighborhoods where you have residential, your commercial, and transit, all blend in together. I think that's a good, trend for the future.
And even Ottawa, right? Like Ottawa is one of the cities that is the most bike friendly here in Canada, right? So I see that growth in terms of making
But the bike is, I would say, still more like an exercise for people. Though it's not like, for example, where I came from, people ride the bike as a transportation, as their main transportation. They ride the bike to work, they ride the bike to school. But here, biking is more of an entertainment and sport activity rather than a means of transportation, I would say. And it's not to majority of Canadians. And then I think the second thing, right, as I mentioned, is that if you are coming from a culture or a country that you are used to have help for a lot of things, you would realize that Canada is really not a good place for that. So, for example, right, if we need to find, if we need to find, someone to fix, plumbing, someone to do some cleaning, or just overall
this is his
kind
way
of
of saying that we're not very handy people.
We're not very handy people because we grew up in an environment that you don't need to worry about any of those things, right? I never need to worry about how to fix a car. I never need to worry about how to fix a lock or how to fix, a dripping water tap, all those things, because you can easily get someone come to a place to fix it. And I understand, some of our friends, they, for example, are coming from India, they even have stay-home help, right? People help, cooking, laundry, fixing everything around the house. And that is certainly not the situation
People
in Canada.
here more do-it-yourself kind of approach.
Everything is do yourself, from maybe small things, right? Like, fixing things around in your house, to sometimes people are really handy. They fix their car, they change their tires in their own garage, they wash their own cars, and they even do like home renovation themselves. For example, when I was in China, if you want to paint your house, people would never think about, oh, let's buy the paint and have a weekend to paint ourselves. People will always hire professionals to do so. But here, we know so many people who are just doing those things themselves, right? Just painting the house yourself, or sometimes people are even more hardcore. They renovate a whole kitchen just by themselves.
All right, time to move on to number 6. One of the things that also, it shouldn't be a surprise, but it still surprised me, is the weather. Canada can go from super hot days in summer to really cold winters. Being a Latin American person who, is not used to cold weather or had even seen snow before coming to, US and Canada, that was a big change for me.
Yeah, some people might like it though, because, right, you have really warm summers and,
True.
Cold winters is very descriptive. But for people coming from mild climate, this is definitely a challenge. You have to, deal with weather up, to maybe 35 degrees to minus 35 degrees, just in a matter of 3 weeks.
Yes, and I mean, my parents in Brazil, for example, once it goes to like 15 degrees, they already think it's cold and they're wearing gloves and hat, right? So this is the level of cold for us. But here for Canadians, it's just so funny. Being here after a few winters, that feels like nothing, right? Like 15 degrees feels warm. Like right now, it's like 15 degrees. I'm wearing shorts and a shirt, so I feel like I'm adapting to the weather here.
I would say Canadians start to wear, shorts as soon as the snow stops.
Sometimes you can see people walking around with flip-flops and shorts when there's still snow around on the ground, which I cannot do it, but I have all respect.
All right, so I'm gonna talk about
number 7.
So number 7, I want to talk about a little bit more about money. So money matters. There are just so many things to talk about, right? When we talk about money, personal finance, and all the things maybe people want to know about Canada.
And why do you think I married this man, right? Just
no,
saying. Just
that's
kidding.
not. Well, I wish. So first, I want to talk about tax. Canada has a really heavy tax system, from your income tax to,
Sales tax
sales
when you buy
tax.
products on the store.
Yeah, well, all kinds of taxes you may or may not even know. We are still trying to learn about all, those different taxes that, applies to us. So in terms of income tax, I was shocked when I got my first payroll when I started working in Canada. It was a huge deduction. It was like, I would say, like more than 30% of your salary just goes to the taxman. Now, introducing the taxman. And also, right, another thing is sales tax. So we first landed in Alberta. That wasn't, that dramatic for us. It's only 5% there.
Yeah,
the
because
federal tax.
different provinces also have different, right, sales taxes.
Yeah.
So it really can vary.
Yeah, so Alberta doesn't have provincial sales tax, so you only pay for the federal federal tax, which is only 5%. But moving to many other provinces, they have both the federal sales tax and the provincial tax, which add up to over 10%. For example, where we are now in Ontario, that's 13% in total. So every $100 you spend, you actually have to pay $113. Every year, that adds a lot to your cost.
And the tricky part that, it was different for me from Brazil. So Brazil, when you look at price tags and when you go to the store, that's the price you're gonna pay.
Yeah.
But here, they don't include the taxes in that price. So sometimes you're gonna look, oh, it's $5, and then you go to pay, and it's actually $7. So always keep in mind that there's taxes on top of the price.
Yeah, and that applies especially when you're using services or going to restaurants here in Canada. So right, what you see and what you pay can be dramatically different. That comes to the second topic, tips. A lot of services come with tips, from restaurant to finding help to all kind of services you can think about.
Yeah.
And I would say the interesting part of tip is that when we first come here, we would think tip would be maybe a incentive system, right, to promote a good service, where you feel if the person gave you a good service, you give them a good tip, and if they don't give you good service, it's optional, you don't need to give tip. But we have realized tip is almost a mandatory thing here.
It's expected, right?
It's expected.
And I mean, it makes sense sometimes, because people in some occupations, like, restaurant servers, for example, they are paid very low sometimes. So the tips can make a difference.
Yeah, and also it's just respected, I think, just overall. And there is kind of a number people have in mind. For example, when you go to a restaurant, you are expected to pay around 15%, right? Maybe if you really dislike the service, you pay 10%, which is kind of contradictory, like, right? If you don't like the service, why do you still have to pay 10% of tip?
Or sometimes I've seen when they give you the machine and then there are options, you have like 20% or 18% tip.
I know. I remember a few years ago, the machine, shows you 10%, maybe 15, 18, and then they have increased over years. Now the options become 15, 18, 20. So they are increasing the kind of the minimal, standard or minimal, expected tip from consumers. So right, when you go to a restaurant, maybe when you see the menu, it's $20. But eventually, with tips and tax, everything, it ends up to be over $30. So what you see and what you pay is really different.
Yeah. So when you take someone out on a date, keep in mind how much it might come at the end. But make sure to tip folks who are doing good service, especially now during the pandemic, right? We have a lot of people who are putting themselves out there to keep us, keep us fed and entertained. So make sure to tip people and support, right? Awesome. And let's move on to the next tip.
Our next tip,
pun
intended.
Okay, so the next tip is around cultural norms, right? So coming from Latin America, we are people who we're very close to people. And when we talk to people, there's no sense of personal space. We're talking to people who are doing this and this and this. It's very normal to be very close to people. I remember my parents, when I was growing up, they would always tell me, like, okay, make sure to greet everyone in the room. And you have to hug and kiss every single person when you arrive and when you leave. And that, to me, is what I learned how to be polite. But here in North America in general, but especially in Canada, that is a little bit different. I think some Canadians...
Personal space, first of all.
Yeah, some Canadians, I don't think they're gonna be as, welcoming if you already greet them that way. So personal space is important sometimes, right? So some people might appreciate having a little bit more space between people. And kissing, like the first time we meet people, might not always be a good choice. So I wouldn't do that here.
Yeah. Or even in terms of conversation-wise, right? People in maybe some other cultures are, are more inclined to ask personal questions. For example, where I come from, people are not afraid of asking personal questions or really dig into your personal life, right? How much are you making? Who are you dating? But all those kind of very personal questions the first time you meet. But in Canada, I would say those are very close questions.
Yeah.
Even among friends, some of the topics never come up. For example, right?
I would never ask someone how much they get paid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of things that are seen as really personal, and people are trying to really avoid this topic here.
Exactly. So I'll just be careful. But that said, I think Canadians are extremely nice, open-minded, and kind, generous people. One of the things that we're very famous for here is apologizing, right? And indeed, this is true, I must say. In my experience, often when I encounter Canadians, even when we don't mean it, like if something happens, we just bump into each other. Sorry comes immediately.
Yeah, I think if one person steps on another person, both people will say sorry. Oh, sorry, I stepped on you. Oh, sorry, my foot is under you.
Yeah, I mean, even now during Zoom times, right, when we have Zoom meetings and someone interrupts each other, it's like always this back and forth. I'm like, no, please, you go first. People here are extremely nice and kind. And I feel like I can really be myself here. I don't feel judged. Like, I feel like people really appreciate difference in a way that other places might not.
All right. So our next topic, number 9.
9.
I want to talk about something very interesting, food related, which is Tim Hortons. So before we came to Canada, we never knew that there is such a thing called Tim Hortons. But after we came here, we noticed that this is such a big cultural icon in Canada. So what Tim Hortons is, and what they offer, especially if you don't know what a double is, check our other video. Tim Hortons is a coffee chain in Canada, and it's just everywhere. Almost every city block, every place you go to, you see Tim Hortons, and people call it Timmy's because that feels really close and feels really friendly.
And a lot of times in your workplace, you have a lot of colleagues who are gonna say, "Oh, wanna take a break and grab some Timmy's?"
Yeah,
it's very common.
Yeah, so Timmy's, I would say, has evolved to as a culture. So people, go there to meet, to chat with each other, and it's more than just a coffee shop anymore. More than just a coffee shop. It's really become a meeting place where people hang out with each other. And also,
and every year, so big tip, every year they have this big thing that goes on where you have to roll the rim of the cup, and you can get prizes, and it's a big deal. Like, people sometimes look forward to that.
Good marketing strategy, though.
Like, I got free donuts, free coffee before, and I was feeling very proud of myself.
Yeah, except this year during the pandemic, they adapted very quickly, becomes digital rolling. So you roll the cup in your app,
and you can still get points and donuts and things. So it's really nice, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So when you come to Canada, right, don't be surprised to see a lot of people on the street holding a red cup. It says Tim Hortons. It's really not uncommon at all. You will always see that.
Exactly. And Mojo, come here for the final tip, which is number 10, which is gay friendly. So we're both gay men here in Canada, if you didn't know before. But to me, being Canada was such a beautiful opportunity to really be myself and feel safe being myself. It's a country that has had gay marriage since 2005 even, right? So it's been a while, and I see so much acceptance here and by many, many people. Of course, there's still homophobia sometimes, right? No country is perfect. But I do notice that, generally speaking, I feel here a lot more safe and able to be myself and express myself. Is that your experience, Tony, here?
Yeah, I do think so. I mean, especially in my experience, I feel like this is a very open topic, and people really don't differentiate, right? For example, when we talk about marriage is marriage. People don't differentiate. Oh, this is a gay marriage, or this is a straight marriage. It just sounds like, after we live in this country for many years, those differentiations just sound weird to us already.
Yeah. nobody, people, no one is surprised, right? When we say that we're partners, no one is surprised.
Oh, what kind of partner are you?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
even like when we were preparing for a wedding, we were so positively surprised because buying the rings, like people just got it, right? Like they knew that we were buying rings for each other. So it was just such a positive experience for us. And coming from Brazil, one of the countries with the highest number of violence towards LGBT people in the world, to me, I cannot express, honestly, like it makes me even a little bit emotional because for the first time in my life, I can really walk around the streets and feel like I'm safe and I can be myself. I can be open with my colleagues at work, and they really appreciate me for who I am.
Yep. All right. Now that comes to the end of today.
Yeah, I hope that those tips are useful to you before you come to Canada. I'd love to hear from other people who have been in Canada before. Are there other tips that we should include in this list?
Definitely, and let us know if there are any other topics you'd like to hear, or just some of those topics that you would like to hear more from us, or you would like to us to share more about our experiences, with our life in Canada, with our process of moving to Canada, and so on. Let us know, and we can definitely make more videos.
Oh my God, guessing machine! Oh my God, bye!
I think Mojo needs to say bye now.